Guys, today Wayne Dyer reminds us to not die with our music still in us. And this goes back to our purpose, finding out what it is that we really love doing and the thing that makes us truly happy. So, what is it for you? Is it writing a book? Is it pursuing a talent? Is it doing something that you've always wanted to do, but you've always been afraid to do? Is it simply being the best mother, father, sister, brother, human being you can be? Whatever it is, you can do it. You have to believe it, and you have to understand that you have music inside you. You have something that is unique to you. You were put on this planet for a unique purpose. I finally realized I want to write my book. I want to share my life with people, and it has changed everything. So I challenge you to find what's that music within you. Have a great morning, everyone.
Fear is projecting what you believe to be the outcome in front of you and then feeling the energy right now. And so with that, I like to invite you to project the possibility that it can come true. It may take longer, it may cost more, it may, require that you let go of some people, but that it can come true. As well as looking forward to realistic things as well. I don't expect to go from $10,000 to 10 million. I don't even expect to go from 10,000 to a million, but I can require that I go from 10,000 to 25. I set all my goals that way. I still have the sight of a million or 10 or whatever that is, touching those many people. But I give myself incremental bites so that I can get it done. Now, when you talk about validating your fears or dismantling your fears, what needs to take place? Application. What needs to take place in order for you to stay in action? Look at what strategy needs to take place. Here's what I love. I love that there's a projection and then there's an actual. There's always that. You think you know what's going to happen when you're going to the movies. You think how a movie's going to turn out. You think how it's going to be when you go out to dinner. You have an idea what it's going to be like at an amusement park. And then all of those projections are replaced with actuals. Once you do it, you go, oh, here's how it was. It was better than I thought. It was amazing. Or no, it was not all that. Whatever. You've replaced the projection with the actual. So here's the other thing. When you're managing fears and when you're climbing over fears, you want to look for action so you can replace the projection with the actual. Because if you don't replace the projection with the actuals, you're always sitting back going, okay, what could have happened? Here's what I think would have happened. But you never really know.
The fastest way to figure out what to do next is to model success. Model success. Whenever you don't know what to do, model success. What that does is, when you can find somebody who's done the thing that you want to do, right? Like, think about what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do in life, right? In life, in business, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? Where do you want to go? Find people who've done it. And the key thing is, don't look at what they're doing right now, because that's not going to be very helpful for you. Instead, what we want to do is look at, what did they do when they started? How did they go from 0 to 1? How did they get their thing off the ground? Because it does two key things. It gives you hope that it's possible. Whenever you look at your heroes, mentors, people who've done amazing things, we often feel when we look at our goals that it's not possible. Like, has that happened to you? You look at your goals, your big goals, not your little ones, but the big goals. Like, that's not possible. I can't do that. Sometimes you feel like you can, and it's inspiring. It's like, yes, I can't wait to do that. And other times it feels like the big goal is too big, and you're never going to be able to do that, right? Does that sound familiar? So then when you're able to see people who have done it, it gives you the hope, the motivation, the inspiration that you can do it too. And if you look at their story, you'll see that they probably started with less than what you already have right now. Chances are your heroes, they started with less than what you already have right now. And if they could do it, why can't you? Because of the story that you're telling yourself. And so being around those stories, being around those people, even if it's from books and videos and podcasts, right? Being around that makes you realize, holy cow, this is possible. The second thing it does is it gives you strategies. It's like, well, what did they do? Not just the motivation to act, but what specifically to do. How did they do it? How did they get started? This is what saved my business. Bill Gates, I like to say, he saved my business. I haven't met Bill Gates yet, but he saved my business because I had a software company and I quit on my business partner. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do next. I was making no money. I'm making $300 a month. I'm struggling. I'm suffering. I'm trying. I'm working hard every day. And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Help me, please. I tried everything that I could think of, and nothing seemed to be working. And I was tired of being broke, and tired of being tired, and tired of not having results, and tired of having success. I was beaten down. I was tired. I had to find a different way. And so I quit on my business partner, which was the worst day of my life. And then I woke up the next day and said, I can't quit yet, because if I do, I'm going to regret it. But I can't keep going the way that I'm going. I have to find a different way to stand. And so I said, you know what? Somebody's figured this out. Somebody's figured this out. Somebody had to figure this out. Who's figured this out? Who's built a software company? And the first person I could think of was Bill Gates and Microsoft. It wasn't that I spent a ton of time researching and understanding. It's just, I was desperate, I was hopeless, I was lost, and I just thought, Bill Gates, Microsoft. And so I looked at, how did Bill Gates start Microsoft? 0 to 1, right? How did he get started? How's somebody who's super successful makes an extra $1 million now, or how I might get an extra 1,000 subscribers now? It's not as relevant, it's not as inspiring, it's not as helpful, because there's a lot of momentum that goes into it already. So, but 0 to 1, how did he get started? And I found out that he did it through partnerships. And he found people who was already targeting his target audience, and he partnered with them. Not partnership in terms of they own a part of Microsoft, but they made a deal together. And so Microsoft's big deal came with IBM, where IBM was the biggest computer manufacturer at the time. Every IBM computer shipped had Microsoft software on it. IBM had a new computer, they wanted to get it out to the market. They needed some great software for it, an operating system. Microsoft came along and helped them. And so every IBM shipped had Microsoft software on it. Like, wow, that's great. And that blew up the company. That was like their giant momentum moment. But Microsoft was already a $7 million company, I think, when they made that deal. So how did they go from 0 to 7? Well, same thing, partnerships. Their very first partnership came with a company called MITS. They had this device called the Altair, and it was on the cover of a magazine. And Bill Gates and Paul Allen, his business partner, saw it, and they said, if MITS is going to come up with the Altair, they need software for it. Let's write to them and say that we can do the software. And they said, okay, cool, yeah, come on, I'd love to see your software. Now, this is a little maybe sneakier, underhanded. Bill Gates had not written the software for it yet. He didn't even have his hands on one of the mid-Saltaires. He's coding it without having a device and without having it ready. And luckily, by the time he gets to them in the meeting, it actually worked, right? So that's a lot of risk, and that's a lot of staking your reputation, I guess, on yourself and your ability, and hoping that it's going to work out. Maybe a little too risky for me, but it was still the concept of partnerships. Who was already targeting my target audience, your target audience? And instead of trying to go after customers one by one, how can you work with somebody who, if they told people about you, it would reach 10 people at a time, or 100 people at a time, or 1,000 people at a time, or 1 million people at a time, right? How could we make that happen? And so I looked to my own business. Like, okay, we sell scientific software. Who else sells scientific, not software, but other products that I can make some kind of partnership with? And the first company that I connected with was in the UK. And I messaged them to say, hey, we've got this company, we've got this software. Do you want to represent us in Europe? And I forget which markets we looked at, but UK and a couple other countries. Do you want to represent us in Europe? Because our software is great, it works, but we, the customer support and language differences and time zone differences, would you like to be our partner in the UK? And they said yes. How do we get started? I was nervous, I was sweating, I was trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I got my first potential deal here. I'm how old? I'm 20 at the time-ish. And I say, okay, there's an upfront commitment of $13,500. They had to pay us $13,500. At the time, I'm making $300 a month. So I guess that's kind of my bold statement, or my bold commitment, like Bill Gates. So you got to pay me $13,500 up front. And I remember pressing send on the email and sweating, nervous. I don't want to lose this deal, Finally got somebody at the table. And they said yes. They said yes. Crazy. They said yes. And then the money hit our bank account. Like, oh my gosh, $13,500. This is crazy. It doesn't seem like a lot of money now, but man, I felt like I won the lottery. I felt rich. And more important than just the money was that something worked, momentum, finally, like something, anything was actually having an impact. It's crazy. And I had a strategy that I could apply. I could go after other companies, and that's what I did. I closed more and more deals, more of these partnership deals, all based off of Bill Gates' strategy, right? So again, I haven't met Bill Gates. I haven't told him this story yet, but the way that he built Microsoft became an inspiration for me to build my company, at least in the early days. And it got our company off the ground and starting to get some results. And so whenever you don't know what to do, you model success. You find the person who's done the thing. It gives you hope, it gives you inspiration, and it also gives you specific strategies. Now, it may not fit 100%, right? I had to research Bill Gates. I had to see how he got started. I had to see his first deals. And my deal wasn't exactly the same deal that he signed, but it's close enough. And all I really needed was the idea, was a strategy to get started. And it saved my company, it saved my business. I mean, I don't know, if I didn't do that, I might have some job right now that I hate. Honestly, like I just quit on my business partner. I was afraid I was gonna live in regret of not knowing. And I was just lost, guys. I was just lost. But I knew that if I stopped now, that I would look back on that moment and say, what if I just kept going? And if I didn't find that strategy, I don't know what I would have done. Honestly, probably at some job that I hate. It's crazy how these little shifts, little moments can make such a giant difference in your life. And so hopefully this video can help inspire a little moment for you. So if you surround yourself with your heroes, you look at the people who are doing the thing that you want to do, and be around them more and study their success, it gives you the hope and the motivation that it's possible. And hopefully it also gives you the specific strategies on what you can do so you can accomplish your goals as well. The fastest way to build your business, to get the right ideas to grow, is to model success.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Good afternoon, guys. I remember Stephen Covey sharing some amazing wisdom in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it affected me profoundly when I heard it. And it is this: the way we regard or treat the 1% is going to be the key to how we affect the 99% of people. So what that means is that the 1% of people that may test us the most in terms of our control and our response to things is going to determine how we are regarded and how we treat the rest, the 99%. So the ones that challenge us the most, and we have to ask ourselves again, where is the real challenge? The real challenge is in controlling our minds and how we respond to that 1%. Okay, because everyone is ultimately a one. We're all a one, and we have to remember that. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Investing is an infinite game. Jeff Bezos, he doesn't walk around saying, look how rich I am. If anything, he says, look at the amazing company that I've built. Use the reading for what it's good for, but use phone conversations for what they're good for and reach out to the right people.
It was a great hack. What's up, Believe Nation? If you're interested in success, building wealth, and pursuing happiness along the way, then I have a great interview for you. Today's guest is Guy Spier, a very successful investor who's known for 3 things. 1, he's had lunch with Warren Buffett. 2, he shared countless of insights and value in his book, The Education of a Value Investor, which I highly recommend reading. And 3, he also manages money himself, 9 figures in assets for individuals, helping grow their capital with his Aquarium Fund Capital. So if you're interested in the 3 things I shared at the beginning, make sure you sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview. I've been following your work, your interviews, I've read your book, really diving into, Manesh, you, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, the tribe, you could say. And so I guess as a starting question, I want to go into investing performance. And I'm curious to know what key elements for you have led to your success.
And thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for having me. Really, I feel honored. I don't have, people talk about it as an Omaha number. Our number is like high teens, at least, for a very long period of time. And I've been going now a long period of time, and I actually do have returns that are better than the S&P, but not by a lot. And I've annualized after fees at about 10% PR, which is not like super spectacular. But it is, I would tell you that if you do the compounding, if you just put up a spreadsheet and see what happens if you grow at 10% per year for like 23 years, it's pretty amazing, actually. At any level of starting assets, you end up with some extraordinary results. Exactly what goes into it, I think that every single person's starting condition, starting position is so different, and you cannot compare where different people start from. So everyone is on a very, very personal journey, and they each bring some advantages and some disadvantages. So if you take Manish, he had sold a business, and he started investing money, the proceeds of that business that he'd sold. I think that one of the advantages that gave him was that it was entirely his money that he was investing. And that was very good. In my case, I had not sold a business. I was interested in investing, and I just left investment banking. And I had my father come along and say, "You're clearly interested in this. Why don't you try managing some of this money?" But so I already from the starting gate had a very, very different orientation. It wasn't my money. It wasn't a business that I'd built that I had the proceeds of. And so, and then even then, there's the personal aspects of it. So some people in my shoes would have gambled like mad. And I went in the opposite direction. I was just unbelievably scared because I knew exactly what proportion of his net worth that represented, which was pretty much all of it. So I went into super, super conservative mode. What's my point to you is that when you're looking at track records, there is so much that has gone into that track record that you just don't see and will never know in a certain way. And but what goes into it? I mean, I think my point is to make every single individual who is working at investing and is developing a track record to forgive themselves and understand that so much of what goes into that track record and what that track record becomes has got as much to do with their starting conditions as anything else. I would tell you that I was never shooting for the stars. I was never trying to have the best returns because I'd figured out that even with okay returns, so long as I could stay at it, I'd be doing very, very well, provided I could stay in the game for long enough. And there's a book by Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game, and there's a book by a guy called James Carse called Finite and Infinite Games. And the idea behind both those books is that investing is an infinite game, in that the very worst thing that you can do is to do something that would get you taken out, would get you sent off the pitch, you know. So if you're a football player, if you're a soccer player and you foul the other team, it doesn't take you off the pitch for good. But there are some things that you can do investing which take you off the pitch for good. And so you just want to, more than getting really, really high returns, is that you just want to avoid those mistakes that take you off the pitch. And then somebody else has another really good way of putting it. It's like in life, you want to avoid zero. So it doesn't matter any number, however big, if you multiply it by zero, is zero. And so you really want to be careful that you're not engaging in any zero. So hang gliding is tantamount to asking God to give you a zero, because very simple errors, and it happens all the time to hang gliders, you know, wingsuit flying, those are all potential zeros right there. But in the investing world, it's shocking how some really, really smart people who really ought to know better, and you know, I mean, the long-term capital management may have been before you were interested in investing, but these guys had not just PhDs, they had a Nobel Prize winner in their management, and they risked a zero. And guess what? The zero came along. And so when it comes to me, what I figured out was that if I just, and it's a kind of a Charlie Munger thing of inversion, if I just avoided the biggest mistakes of investing, and I could get somewhat of a decent return for myself and my investors, that would be a pretty good life. And so that's kind of where I've been focused on. And there was one time in 1998 that is the only time that the fund that I managed was leveraged by 10%. And when I look back, I mean, that's nothing compared to the guy from Archegos who was levered I don't know how many times. And for your interest, I was yesterday visiting Credit Suisse, you know, the very trading floor from which some of that credit was allocated. But even a 10% leverage, you just don't know how the world could react to something, and suddenly you find yourself without a fund. And Jeremy, it happens to the smartest and nicest people. So far I've avoided it, and I have every intent of avoiding it over the course of the rest of my life. I don't know, that's a long and rambling answer. I hope I gave you some kind of insight and response that was worthwhile for you and the listeners.
No, that was perfect in terms of, you know, I know there's a quote where this isn't a 100 IQ game where 140 IQ doesn't beat 100 IQ. So yeah, it's the practical steps, long-term patience, and Yeah, I guess in terms of some of those pitfalls, do you think people who are out there trying to, build wealth and knowing that compounding has to play a role in it, that, even just setting a target of, okay, I would love to make, if I could make 12% per year for 23 years, like or 15%, like setting a target like that, are you already setting yourself up for failure?
Potentially, yes. And I hope you don't mind. I just discovered I can make my head as big. That's kind of better, isn't it?
Perfect.
So I saw you kind of react as you, in any case, I don't think you're setting yourself up for failure, but it's who am I to say you're going about it the wrong way? There's so many contradictions in the world of finance in which, and I think that in many ways the world has got contradictions in that it seems to me, Jeremy, that the way to get to things is by the indirect route. I keep finding that the direct route doesn't get you where you want to go. And just to give you, I love talking about drunks and bars, but so if you're trying to get the girl, so if you walk up to her in the social setting and say, wow, you look absolutely awesome. Maybe we could sit down and talk for a while. And if things work out, maybe we could go home together, develop a relationship. And then maybe one day we might get married. But meanwhile, you're just unbelievably hot. And I'm sure you're also really interesting. And can we just get to know each other? That would be a very direct approach, which would go to the core of at least what would have been in my mind at that age when that was going on for me. But by contrast, even just like, oh, you have a beautiful sounding name, or would you like to go look at my stamp collection? Are you interested in stamps? I'm very interested in stamps. Would you like to see that indirect approach somehow it yields far better results? And I think that, so it's just conflating two things. What we want to do is build wealth. But when we try and take the direct approach, we're taking the risk. You take that approach with a girl that I just described, and maybe, one in 100, 99 in 100 girls will slap you in the face and tell you where to get off. But the indirect approach is just going to get you better results. So I'm not saying it's absolutely wrong, but and then I think another analogy for me is that I found really useful. I don't know how to fly a plane, but when I was younger, I took flying lessons mainly to please my father, who's an avid pilot. And I discovered this really interesting thing when they're teaching you to land a plane. When the airplane comes close to the ground, a beginner pilot wants to kind of look down, wants to look over the side of the cockpit to see how close you are to the ground. And what they teach you is you need to kind of like watch for the horizon to come up in your peripheral vision. Because it turns out if you look over the side of the cockpit, you're not going to fly the plane straight and level, and you're going to have a horrible landing and potentially even crash the plane. So the idea is that sometimes the most important, you got to keep your eye fixed on the long-term goal and let these kind of things come into one's peripheral vision. And so actually having high returns is an intermediate target. It's not actually what we're looking for. It's kind of looking over the side of the cockpit and can lead to great terrible results. What we're actually looking for is a better life. And what would it take for us to live a better life? And focus on those things, and growing wealth is a part of that. And so I'll just give you one example rather than staying in ethereal theory, which drives my whole family nuts, I can tell you, my wife and my 3 children. But, so Charlie Munger says, the best way to get success is to deserve it. So rather than trying to earn high returns, why not work on becoming the kind of investor that management teams would love to have on their shareholder list? And so, if I do more work to have great insights into industries and companies so that management teams seek me out, or I get develop a reputation, and I'm, by the way, nowhere near a great story on this yet, but I hope to become. They say, wow, you've got Guy Spears, investor. That's fantastic. You must be getting so many insights. What a wonderful investor to have. I still want to build wealth at the highest rate, but I'm focusing on a better goal, something that's closer to the horizon. Or, I was listening to a podcast by William Green, the author of this book, Richer, Wiser, Happier, and he was expressing this idea of the best way to get good friends is to be a good friend. You know, the best way to get success is to deserve success. And so I think that those kinds of, you know, another one would be, Jeremy, it's not actually about how high a return you earn, but simply making sure that you underspend whatever it is that you do earn. So there are some personalities where they're very high earners and they're very successful investors potentially, but they can't help increasing their appetite commensurate with the rate at which their wealth is increasing, and they may live in constant financial stress as a result. Whereas if you just kind of reverse that and make sure you live well within your means, that's a far better, actually that's an intermediate goal, but it's a very simple litmus. So developing the right long-term horizon-like things to focus on, I think it can make an enormous difference. And I would tell you, I know you're nodding your head and it sounds obvious, but I look at myself and I realize that there are certain periods in my life where I was just focusing on the wrong thing. And there's an enormous waste of resources. And all I had to do was refocus where my attention was going, you know? There's another, forgive me, the listener, you can see that Jeremy's just listening. He's not kind of shaking his, he's not stopping me from talking, so I'll continue talking. There's another analogy from driving, which is really, really interesting. So if you ever learn to drive on a skid pan where, you know, they kind of cover they make the surface very slippery, so kind of the car easily spins out of control, which is an enormous amount of fun, by the way. But there's this weird thing that you tend to the car will tend to steer even though the rear wheels have spun out and it's not entirely in control. The car tends to go where you look. So what they teach you in terms of getting the car back into control and getting to where you want to go is look where you want to go. And of course, the first thing that happens when the car spins out of control is what a lot of people do is they look where they're afraid to go. So if you're afraid to hit the tree and you're just looking at the tree, it's very likely that you'll hit the tree, or far more likely. Whereas if you look to see where you'd like the car to get to, you're far more likely to get there. But, you know, I've spent 23 years or 25 years in the investment world, and I'm blown away at how many people, for example, get into fights. And you kind of say, well, why is this a long term? Why is this going to get you to where you want to get to? And the answer will be, oh, but they have wronged me and therefore I have to, and therefore, and suddenly they've kind of bogged down in a rabbit hole, basically. But I'll give you back the mic because who knows where the hell you are, Jeremy.
No, and I love hearing those stories. The viewers, you know, the less interruptions and the more I can squeeze out of you is perfect. So thank you for those.
But you just realized, Jeremy, that this is very, very different to my family who will just shut me down so quickly. They'd be snoring, you know, they'd be fast asleep, or they would have left the room. I would have been talking into pure thin air, you know?
Oh, no, stories. Yes, this is gold. So thank you. In regards to, yeah, and you know, nodding my head, it is something where like I'm nodding it because I know I've personally just thought about, oh, if I could make this return on this money, that, you know, I'd be financially free and not have to answer to anyone, and you know, trying to get that out of my head and just focus on not losing money as the primary thing. I guess in regards to, especially right now, when just it can seem very hard to maybe find ideas and find investments. How do you stay in the areas of what you know and don't try and convince yourself that you understand this and you're going down a path where you don't know what you don't know?
Oh.
And I'm curious how you deal with that, because
yeah, exactly. And I love answering. I don't know if the listener loves answering, but it's exactly, that's a really hard question. And to ask the question is to answer it. There are no easy answers. There's nothing obvious. And so you've asked a very, very good question. And I just want to acknowledge that, because really good questions are really difficult to answer, or can be really difficult. That is a really good question. And the mere fact that you're asking yourself the question means that you're reaching for an answer. And in some cases, I think simply reaching for an answer is about as good as you can get. So you're stretching yourself in the right direction. And so that's a fantastic start, because there'll be some people out there who are like, I'm the world's greatest expert on ... You don't realize it. And even my brain doesn't realize it. And you kind of say, yeah, they're probably going to, they're going to have a come a cropper sooner rather than later, because they clearly don't know enough about it. I think that the most helpful thing for you is that there are no silver bullets, as best I can tell. Or, Jeremy, if there are silver bullets, I haven't found them, send them my way. And again, from William Green's book, and I don't remember who he's quoting, but there's a wonderful phrase that he uses multiple times called the aggregation of marginal gains. And so this is actually super fun and interesting. So when the problem with so much of business biography is that it needs to tell a story, otherwise it's not going to sell. And so you have to torture reality to some or greater or lesser degree in order to tell the interesting story. But the interesting story that's going to sell your book may not reflect the reality. So the guy who's writing about Sam Walton wants to tell an interesting story about Sam Walton. But as best I can tell, in so many businesses, it wasn't one silver bullet. You had a personality like Sam Walton or Reed Hastings or Warren Buffett, who is spending his, or I should say her, although my last three examples did not include a she, they're spending their whole lives trying to find any gain, any opportunity to improve. And it's when you pull all of those together that you get some overarching result. And so when it comes to, sort of to re-summarize, to restate your question, thinking for the long term and playing within one circle of competence, the aggregation of marginal gains for me comes from some of the following kinds of thinking. So I first of all, the very profound bias against acting on the portfolio. So it's not like if an idea is 1% better than what I've got in the portfolio, then I'll make the switch. It may have to be, 200% better. It's got to have a huge and meaningful, and that's just a conscious choice that I'm not going to act unless there's because I know that the world is so noisy and my brain is so noisy, and there are so many reasons why I might end up acting, and in retrospect realize that I was reacting to noise and not signal, that I want that threshold to be really, really high. In the audio world, you have kind of a low pass filter, which kind of cuts out so you want, and you can make that filter extraordinarily high. In a certain way, Warren Buffett says, wake me up when there's another financial crisis. Actually, poor Warren Buffett, he was all ready for the crisis of last year, but the Fed stepped in so quickly that he didn't have the chance to act. It was super frustrating for him. But so he can now go back to sleep, and when there's another financial crisis, he'll wake up again. His threshold for acting is extraordinarily high. And then, I think that I kind of see my areas of expertise or superior knowledge, to the extent that I have any, as kind of like an archipelago of islands. And I'm not saying that I shouldn't from time to time do a hop to some completely other set of islands, a completely different continent, and see what the world looks like from that. But I think that in general, moving around sort of like the areas and territories that I'm familiar with, and to allow knowledge to unfold slowly, and my definition of the boundaries of that knowledge to unfold slowly, is, I think, something that actually I would say I consciously do. So I know what's home territory for me. And for what it's worth, Jeremy, home territory it's not so much that I have very special expertise in those areas. It's more that I've spent enough time in the world to know that I'm not going to be blindsided in those areas. So some industries move very, very slowly. Even if the companies are losing competitiveness, it's going to happen at a slow pace. Or if they're gaining competitiveness, it's going to happen at a slow pace. And so it's not so much that I know more, it's that the playing field is more level for everyone who wants to play there. Then none of them are going to get blindsided. But
Good evening, guys. I want to share with you another funny story from Les Brown, and this is from his speech in the Georgia Dome. He was providing an example where he was so determined and so resilient in trying to get a job as a DJ, a disc jockey, that he would go every day. Every time he got rejected by the gentleman he was trying to get a job from, he would still go back every day. And that gentleman would get frustrated. He would be saying, "What do you want now?" And Les Brown would give reasons and, as to why he was showing up every day. And the funniest reason was, and this was after, I don't know how many times of going back and forth, Les Brown said to him, because the guy said to him, "What do you want now? I told you there's no jobs here." And then he said, "Well, I didn't know if anybody got sick or died, sir." And I thought, that is incredible. I mean, it's funny because obviously we don't want anybody to die, but these things happen in life, and Les Brown was ready to take that chance or that opportunity. Have a great evening, everyone. Good evening, guys.
When you discover who you are, then everything else is going to fall into place. But there's going to be I feel for sure that this was my life purpose, that discovering the secret and doing everything that I'm doing, I know for sure this is what I was meant to do. So there is that aspect too, but don't lose sight of finding out who you are. That is so important because the person comes and goes, right? That comes and goes, but the infinite being that you are, awareness, consciousness, is eternal. And so when you've got that one down pat and you're living your life as that, well then, oh my gosh, you can do whatever you want because you will have an amazing, incredible life that free of fear and free of all negativity, all negative thoughts, all negative emotions, all problems. You will just have a great life.
Need motivation?
What a top 10 we believe nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Rhonda Byrne, and my take on her top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, be peaceful and calm.
When I discovered the secret, I really, really trained that monkey mind to be positive. And so completely changed my life by just changing my mind and the way that I thought. But still there were times and situations that arose where I would get completely disturbed and this emotion would just rush over me, negative emotion would rush over me. And it's all through welcoming, through discovering who we really are, and through welcoming all of the things in the greater secret, actually. And now I pretty well live my life in calm and peaceful in every situation. And you can do it. You can have that life. And if you are calm and peaceful, you're happy. You're happy all the time. And so there aren't many things that disturb my peace of mind anymore. And because we don't really, I think we put it in the greater secret, we're not looking for peace of mind, we're looking for peace from mind, aren't we? Really, that's the truth. So, yeah, so when you understand who you are, who you really are, and then you start to have a happiness just arise within you, then you just find that person that used to annoy you just doesn't annoy you anymore. And you'd be like, how come I get on really well with that person? What was it that ever bothered me about that person? Or the restaurant that you never really like to go to, and when you go to it, you're like, why didn't I like this restaurant? This restaurant is so cool. I mean, they've got this new menu, and I don't know what was wrong with me. I've completely changed. Nothing will affect you in the way that affects you anymore. And you know, everything in life, traffic jam. It's just, you know, when you get caught in traffic, do you know what the universe is telling you? Stop. Stop. And just be still. Just stop and be still and be calm and be peaceful. That's what it's telling you. Everything is a gift. Absolutely everything.
Rule number 3, activate your healing power.
How can you activate your self-healing and help your body heal while feeling the discomfort in your body? And you know, it's tricky, isn't it? Because the body has all of its sensations and it kind of keeps reminding you there's this little thing going on. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you something that I do each day, and I'm going to give you this. And also remember the super app and affirmations. So you need to visualize yourself well. And I'll tell you what I do, what I've done in the past, is that I close my eyes and I just imagine that I am outside on a lawn and that I am jumping for joy, and I'm going, yes, 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 that whatever it was has completely disappeared. So that is visualizing, or you can visualize a phone call with somebody that you're really close to, like your mum, for example, and you're like, guess what, mum? It's gone, it's disappeared. And just visualize that phone call until the subconscious mind gets a hold of it. And then you're going to find you will be attracted to what will have it disappear, and it will just disappear. But in the meantime, I want to give you, and you've got this recording, okay? So you'll be able to go back and write these down. But these are just some affirmations that are really powerful, that's for your body. So I allow my body to heal itself. I allow my body to have perfect health. I allow perfection to manifest in this body now. I am happy, happy, happy. I am healthy, healthy, healthy. I am well, I am well, I am well. I am amazingly healthy. Thank you, thank you, thank you for my perfect health and well-being. So those affirmations are really, really powerful for your body, okay? And for anybody out there, for anything that you might be suffering from, whether it doesn't matter whether it's something big, whether it's something small, whether it's something that's just irritating, or those affirmations are really amazing.
Rule number 4, practice welcoming feelings.
In The Greatest Secret, we used there's an analogy about a bird flying by. It was actually to do with thought, I think, if I recall, that if a bird is flying by, we don't ask the bird, well, where are you from? What breed of bird are you? Where did you come from? Where are you going to? You just nested. Have you got a partner? Where's the rest of your family? I mean, we don't get involved with that bird, do we? We just let the bird fly on by. And that's what we should do with thoughts. And actually feelings, it's not a bad idea. It's just let them pass by, because all that they are is energy. And if we just let them pass on by, then they don't stick to us and they don't stay, and they don't impact our life. Also, if we are observing feelings, we're welcoming feelings. And I've talked about welcoming before. Welcoming is a process that stops us from resisting. And so, because resistance is really the one thing that gets in the way of manifestation, is that we're resisting. And resistance, it's like doubt, and I don't really believe that I'm going to get it. All of those doubts, that's just resistance. That's all it is. And so when we welcome something, that causes us to stop resisting. And the way that we welcome is we just get that feeling, that negative feeling, and we just allow that negative feeling to be here. We don't resist it. We don't try and push it away. We just allow it to be here, and it will just dissolve. It's just energy, and it will just spiral and dissolve and be completely gone. And your life just got a whole lot better from doing that. And so welcoming stops resistance. And so that means that You're not identifying with the feeling and you're not believing the feeling because nothing's personal. You know, those feelings, they're just energy. They're not personal. Like, they don't have your name on them. You think they do, but they don't. And thoughts don't have your name on them either. They're just energy. We could say just energy passing by like clouds, you know. So yeah, that's the secret, isn't it? Is to not believe negative thoughts and negative feelings. If we could just do that, life would be great. And you don't have to try and control them. You just don't believe them, right? And there might be a really juicy thought or a juicy feeling that comes in, and you're kind of riding that feeling like a roller coaster for a few hours. And then when you've suffered enough from that awful feeling, you just think, I've had enough. And then you realize, oh no, I was identifying with that feeling. I thought that feeling was who I am. Because do you know what happens? Like guilt, for example, the energy of guilt can just be like passing by, just passing through. Except when it passes through, we can say, I'm guilty. I know, that was just guilt. Nothing to do with us.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, reject negative.